And Brady will fire it to the outside, and that's caught by Gronk, breaking tackles, and New England has scored 3.5 minutes into the game. Per usual, a resounding spike by Gronkowski, that's 3 yards for the touchdown. Good low pocket, but then somehow it gets batted up in the air and picked off at the 20-yard line. Clean pocket, and then free for the touchdown is Scott Chandler. From the 19-yard line, they toss it to Hillman. He's got a convoy there, and Hillman breaks a tackle and goes to the end zone. Surveys, and it's caught. Getting out front is Brandon Bolden, and Bolden breaking tackles goes into the end zone. Brandon Bolden, an 8. That's out of Northwestern. It's a 35. The ball is loose, and the Broncos in dire need of a major break. Just to the outside. Anderson, can he swing around the corner? He can, and C.J. Anderson is in for the touchdown.
Pass interference, offense, number 87.
There's the fifth.
10-yard penalty.
Osweiler, deep down the left sideline, pulled in. Emmanuel Sanders. First and goal from the 3. Osweiler throws, it's caught. Andre Caldwell. Denver has the lead. Overtime, which he does. Oh, wow. To the toss. Anderson, he'll get it. And plenty more. C.J. Anderson is going to go all the way. And the Denver Broncos win the game.
Are we going to raise the roof? Oh, yeah. Are we going to touch the sky? Hell, yeah. Everybody with me, let me hear you now.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of the Flying Elvis Faithful. It's your boy, Shaq Crosby, flying the flag of the Flying Elvis here in the evil city of Gotham, that's New York City. And with me, as always, is my pal from Oklahoma. It's Josh Matson. Josh, how you doing today?
Good evening, sir. Looking forward to doing the show with you and our new person.
That's right. For those of you who have been listening to us over the past couple of weeks, you heard our good friend John Doucette, who is so good that we just said, you know what, we have to snatch him up. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to announce that our new co-host for the Flying Elvis Faithful is John Doucette. John, hi to the people.
Gentlemen and people, it's always good to be with you. Everything is okay in New England despite what happened Sunday night.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll get into that. But before we get into that, John, on our first show, Johnson and I explained about being Patriot fans and all of that. But, John, we talked about this the last time you were on our show. Tell everybody about yourself. And, of course, you being up there in Massachusetts, you have a first-hand look about what the Patriots go through up there. So talk a little bit about yourself.
Well, again, look, as far as the Patriots are concerned up here, things obviously changed when Robert Kraft bought the football team. All you have to do is just see the surroundings, and I'm certainly old enough to remember what the old Gillette Stadium looked like, and the harness track that was next to the stadium, and how difficult it was to get in and out of that stadium, or the Route 1 nightmare, although that's still there, but not as bad as it once was. To see the way that place now looks, and Patriot Place, the new stadium, the entire setup, it really is night and day from what I remember as a kid growing up and going out to see them as often as possible. Things have really, for the better, changed for Patriot fans, and I do think that for Patriot fans of my age and even the younger generation, it's always a good idea from time to time to remember where you come from. And I think that although the recent success of the team for the past 10 years is quite a testament to what has been built by the Kraft family, still, every once in a while, it's not a bad idea to remember where they came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to put it in perspective that the loss that we're about about to talk about is the worst loss that the Patriots have had in almost a calendar year. And not a lot of NFL teams, not a lot of teams in sports can say that. So I think Patriots fans should realize where they are. Yes, we were all pretty muffed up about the loss, so we're going to talk about that. But yeah, thank you for putting that into perspective, because we have to remember that we're blessed to be able to see this team and the way they perform on a week-in and week-out basis.
And I would also say, guys, look, the business model that the Kraft family has created, I think it's a business model that not only works, but it's a business model that other teams in the NFL have tried to duplicate, and I don't think any of them have really been able to do that. And it just goes to show that the Kraft family, when they bought this football team and decided to really invest in the team and make it, hopefully, the success that it become, that they really spent a lot of time and energy just going over everything and trying to find different ways to improve it so that when it did become a success, it could sustain that success for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you a rundown of what we've got on tap for today. First, of course, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos loss, and we're going to deal with everything that entailed with it, including the Rob Gronkowski injury, which had all of New England probably on the Tobin Bridge. But things are okay on his front, and we'll talk about that as well. We'll also talk about, is there anything as to Rob Gronkowski being called for offensive pass interference? That's been a huge topic on sports radio that I've been fortunate enough to listen to, so we'll talk about that as well. And we'll also talk about the Eagles game that's coming up, who should sit, who should start, and, of course, we have a team to focus on. So, yeah, the dogs agree. This is going to be a pretty good show. Right, Josh?
They agree.
All right, so I think we should first start off with the quarterbacks in this game, because both quarterbacks actually played pretty well. Especially considering the offensive line of the Patriots, and it was actually the healthiest that it's been in weeks. So, for Tom Brady and Brock Osweiler, they both ended the night with similar numbers. Obviously, Brock Osweiler in the second game with an injured Peyton Manning, he had 23 or 42 for 270 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Tom Brady had 23 for 42 for 280 yards with a touchdown and no picks. And obviously, it was a cold night. The snow was blowing. Both quarterbacks didn't seem to be deterred by it. They both threw the ball pretty well, and the weather conditions weren't that big of a factor, other than perhaps slowing the pass rush of each team. The Emmanuel Sanders catch from Osweiler to the Patriots end in the closing minutes, that was an amazing pass, probably his best of the night. So, yeah, the quarterbacks obviously weren't a desperation for the game. So, Josh, talk about how you think both quarterbacks performed in this game.
Oh, Brady performed good. I mean, he was definitely not the reason why New England was a loser in this game. Brock Osweiler, I was impressed for his second game. I mean, he almost had identical stats to Brady, other than the interception, and didn't throw as many touchdowns, but he did everything right. So that was a good performance for Denver out of getting a rookie quarterback playing like he did. I was impressed by Denver, and Brady was impressive like always. No shock there. He didn't have all the weapons that he needed to get this done, but it was Brady and Osweiler both played good. I mean, I don't know what else to say about quarterbacks.
Okay, well, John,
I think the thing about Brock Osweiler that I was impressed with was the way that he handled that offense. He did seem to understand the game plan, and he executed it very well. I really liked the way that he handled the end-of-game situations, especially when the Broncos got down by 14 points. He was able to maintain his points and maintain his confidence within that huddle and within that offense, and was able to bring them back to eventually tie that game. And I just think the way he ran that team, especially in that fourth quarter when things started to get a little tight for both sides, I think was very impressive, and certainly will lead people in Denver to believe that the future of this team is going to be in good hands when Brock Osweiler eventually does become the starting QB.
That's true, but I've read something on some website, but I don't quite remember where it is now, but it was something about the Denver Broncos might owe Brock Osweiler a lot of money, especially with all the hype that he's getting after this win. Don, what do you think about that, and do you think that they actually have a future with Brock Osweiler, or do you think that Peyton Manning should continue to start even after next year?
Look, I think, Manning has certainly put it out there that he wants to at least play one more year. The question now becomes, where does he play that one more year? Brock Osweiler is demonstrating that he, at least in the short term, can be an NFL quarterback that can lead a team. And I think that, again, going back to Sunday night, that was the impressive part. That he never wavered when things started to look like they were going to go south for that team, especially when the Patriots got up by the 14. You would expect a rookie quarterback to start forcing things and to start trying and win the game on his own. But it never seemed that was Brock Osweiler's plan, even when they got down by that many points. And when you think about how long it took Demaryius Thomas to finally get in that game, when he finally made his first catch, and for the most part being invisible in that first half, to me it demonstrates that Brock Osweiler was willing to allow other people to get involved in that offense and help to eventually win that game. I think the Broncos are in pretty good shape here as far as Brock is concerned. Again, the financial aspect of this this is going to be something that John Elway is going to have to figure out, because I would assume that if the Broncos decide to part ways with Peyton Manning once this season is over, regardless of what happens, there's going to be some guaranteed money that's going to end up coming Peyton's way, and that might be a problem for the Broncos when you start talking about this salary cap situation. But again, to me, I would think that if the Broncos, if they become convinced that Brock can play, and the more that Brock plays, and the more that he plays well, and the more that this team becomes convinced that he can lead them down the path toward at least a championship run, then I think the idea of allowing Peyton to leave and try and finish his career somewhere else will be an easier thing for the Broncos to do. And so far, so good. I think Brock Osweiler is proving that he can run this team.
And you mentioned the mysterious disappearance of Demaryius Thomas, and that's because of the adopted son of the Flying Elvis faithful, that's Logan Ryan, who we'll talk about when we talk about the defense later on. But Josh, we have to get into this with Rob Gronkowski. There was a report that just came out about an hour ago that said that he had a bone bruise in the game. If you were watching the game, I know you were, Josh, and I was too, John, I'm sure you were. When he first got hit, I'm usually never like this. I usually like to watch Patriots games. I like to take them as they are. I don't like to overreact, but I'll tell you what, I was praying to the God that he was okay, because if he wasn't, I was yelling and screaming, the season's over, everything's wrong. But the good news is that it wasn't as bad as it looked. And this report just came out about an hour ago that during Sunday night game, Rob Gronkowski sustained a bone bruise strain of the right knee. His status will be evaluated on a weekly basis and listed accordingly on the practice participation and injury reports. There's no timetable for his readiness to return, which will be determined in the days or hours prior to the appropriate game. Any timetable reported prior to that final determination will be speculative. So that's the Patriots kind of playing shot fired with the media, I would guess. So Josh, with the Patriots now being, obviously, they are less than an offense now with Gronkowski, especially with his next game coming up. They're going from a quick strike, multi-dimensional attack to searching for someone to step up. What did you think about guys like Scott Chandler and Brendan LaFell, and where do you think how do you think they'll be able to step up in the future weeks?
Oh, man, Scott Chandler, to me, has not performed very well since he's been in New England. He got a touchdown catch, and he was involved, but LaFell and Chandler both haven't, performed to what us as Patriots fans are probably expecting from them, and it's going to be rough. I know that. Luckily for us, we have a good draw coming up this week where I think we can win even with the guys we have, and if Gronkowski's out, which he's probably going to be, would be my bet, Chandler's going to have to step up. He really doesn't have much of an option, is how I put it. There's guys who are going to need to step up, and it's going to be Keyshawn Martin and LaFell and a bunch of guys that wouldn't start on most teams in the NFL. That's the truth, and it's going to be a rough go of it. Trust me, I think we're going to see a lot of growing pains next week, but I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that.
John, what do you think about Scott Chandler and Brendan LaFell and the rest of the also-rans?
Well, I think that's what Brady now has to work with, and I think that Brendan LaFell, who when he came back had his drops in his first couple of performances out there, which certainly led Patriot fans to believe that there was going to be problems here. Scott Chandler has been the other tight end with the two tight end and three tight end sets that the Patriots have been running of recent days and recent weeks, and Chandler's going to have to become the main guy, and he's going to have to find a way to create space for the wide receivers down the middle of the field, much like what Gronkowski's been able to do. It does, the one thing I was surprised about on Sunday was, when you go back to that first drive of the game that the Patriots scored the touchdown, it was all passes. I really thought that the Patriots, based on the lack of weapons that they were starting to have, Amendola not there, Edelman not there, that they would have run the ball more than they did in that game. And I would believe that that's the approach they're going to take against Philadelphia this coming Sunday, that they're going to try and ground and pound this out just based on the lack of outside weapons that at the moment they possess.
Yeah, and it looks like they're really going to go that route, John, with all the free agent signings that they're coming up with. And this is just coming off hot off the presses as we're doing the show, this is why I love doing this right now. So speaking of running backs, they added running back Trey Williams, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, and they also signed wide receiver Demaryius Johnson, and they placed rookie defensive end Trey Flowers on the injured reserve. So they obviously are adding to the offense. They have both of these guys, Trey Williams, who is sort of like the Deion Lewis role. He's not a Deion Lewis replacement by any stretch, but we thought James White would be, and save for the two touchdowns that he had against the Bills, he really hasn't lived up to that yet, but it's still too early to even put that on the back burner. So, but as far as Williams is, he's 5'7", 195 pounds, signed by the Washington Redskins. Cowboys signed him off the practice squad as well. So he looks like he could be a pretty good contributor if need be. And this Demaryius Johnson guy, I'm not sure of. He might
I know about him.
Be a.
I know about him.
Are you okay? Well, go ahead and go on that.
Demaryius, Johnson played at Tulsa, which is close to me. He was definitely one of the best kick returners in college when he was there. He led college in kickoff return yards, and he was also a good punt returner. I think he was in the top 10 in 2008 or 9 for Tulsa. I mean, he was a big play guy for them. So I know he went to the Eagles, I think is where he's coming from. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was on the Eagles, got cut or something like that.
He was on the Texans.
Okay,
yeah, Texans.
Okay, but he's gonna definitely take over for Chris Harper, who got cut because of his fumble issues over the past couple days, or the past game, I should say.
Yeah, and I'm mourning the loss
I think
of Chris Harper.
At this time of the year, you're going to find guys that haven't really been playing a whole lot of football to this point. I mean, let's face it, we're into December now, and so whatever free agent signings you're going to find, they're going to be guys that frankly have just been hanging around for the most part, either on practice squad or doing nothing. How much you can expect from these two guys, I think, can easily be debated, and how much of an opportunity they're actually going to get to play, I think, can even be more debated. But you've got to fill out the 53-man roster, and so you've got to make sure you've got the bodies, and so this is the way the Patriots win. I'm not sure that any of these signings are going to be earth-shattering by any stretch of the imagination. What you're hoping for is that these two guys just don't make any mistakes. If, in fact, they play on Sunday, that makes the situation even more difficult than it may be right now.
Yeah, I just think that Johnson is being signed because they need a return. I mean, I feel like...
Well, yeah, and as you said, it goes back to last Sunday and the unfortunate mistake that Chris Harper made. It's too bad because I thought when you go back to training camp and you go back to the exhibition games, Chris Harper was one of those guys that was really making an impact, and there were people at the time when the original 53-man roster was put together that really thought he should have made it instead of Aaron Dobson, but instead he ended up on the practice squad. He eventually did get a couple of opportunities and unfortunately made the mistake on Sunday that, as we all know, if you're a rookie and you make a mistake, a glaring one like that, the head coach is going to chop your head off, which is pretty much what happened to Chris Harper. And I would suspect that by the time that plane landed in Providence on Monday morning, Harper already knew his fate.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you guys thought about that, him being out there as a punt returner. There are a lot of questions being asked about the coaching staff, and should he even have been out there? What do you guys think about that?
Well, listen, who else was there? I mean, that's really what you got to ask. That's what you got to ask, because I don't really think our option. The only other guy I could think of it was maybe Chung, who was that kickoff returning, and I don't really think he has experience returning punts. So the options were limited, I think, and Belichick obviously thought Harper was the best option.
Yeah, and I think it does get back to what Harper was doing during training camp and during the exhibition games when Harper was fielding punts during those 4 exhibition games the Patriots played, and I think that Belichick probably felt confident enough that Harper could at least do the job without necessarily having to do anything spectacular. And really, he didn't, because at the time Harper was going out there, the Patriots had a 14-point lead. So securing the football was really all that Harper had to do. Unfortunately, he didn't. It turned the tide of the game, and his fate became rather clear.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to Demarius Johnson. As far as I'm concerned with him, I think he could help out pretty much because he's obviously been associated with the Patriots as far as Bill O'Brien down there in Houston is concerned. And you were right. I did a little Google smoogle, Josh, and he was signed by the Philadelphia Eagles as an undrafted free agent in 2012. So you were correct on that one.
I'm not crazy.
I think you're not crazy. I'm the one that's crazy. So yeah, he was signed by them. So I think both of these guys can. I'm not sure how much they'll help out, but the Patriots certainly need their share of help. So there were. I don't think we talked about this in the recent past, but there was reports about Terrell Owens wanting to work out. I've been asked that question a lot from people. I'm like, seriously, folks, no. Terrell Owens is 41 years old. Like, come on. Like, he may look good at body shape wise, but there's a difference between looking good in the body and being football shape ready. It's two different things.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem you have with bringing these guys in is that you're going to force-feed them a playbook that is rather thick, it's extensive, and it's been easily said to be rather complicated. And so how much the Patriots have to pare down the playbook to allow these guys to help them out, I also determining just what kind of contributions these guys can make to the team as well.
Right. Absolutely. And we all remember the Chad Ochocinco debacle, so I don't know if Patriots fans want to go through that again, counting, this will be the day he catches a touchdown. No, I'm not with that, especially not now, not in December. So let's switch over to the other side of the ball, talk about the Patriot defense. And coming into this game, they were the number 1 defense in the league. I'm not sure where they are now, but I want to talk specifically about the run defense. And they were gashing this game, and that was one of the keys I was looking at that was transforming under Brock Osweiler. It's kind of the similar offense that the Ravens ran, gave the Patriots so much trouble last year. And Peyton Manning was always in the shotgun, and the rush offense was stifled and largely ineffective. But Hillman and Anderson ran those rushing plays to perfection, and the Patriots defense came in allowing only 88.8 yards a game, and the injuries played played a big role in this, obviously, and Dont'a Hightower was the biggest of the factors that happened to do with the rushing defense. And there's a crazy number out there. I think before Dont'a Hightower was out there, they ran for, I think, 17 yards, and then it was an exponential number after he went out. So his absence was definitely felt. Obviously, Jamie Collins' absence was also felt, and Dont'a Hightower, who left the game with a knee injury, and that really did not help. Gerard Mayo and Jonathan Freeney filled in pretty well, although I'm liking Gerard Mayo the way he's looked the last couple of weeks, but I don't think he's still up to snuff. Jonathan Freeney is definitely not enough as far as I'm concerned, but maybe you guys have a different opinion about that. John, I'll go to you first. What did you think about the run defense?
Well, again, you're correct. The loss of Hightower and the loss of Collins really did thin out the linebacking core rather seriously, and Gerard Mayo's foot speed is something that I think now can be questioned, and I think you saw in a couple of those runs with the responsibilities that he had, that he just didn't have the foot speed to be able to take care of those responsibilities. And Jonathan Freeney has I think played well enough, but I just think that you're asking Jonathan Freeney to probably do something at this point in time that he's not capable of doing, and that is to be a starter. I think that Freeney is a guy that he's a reserve. He's a reserve linebacker. He's somebody that can come in and play for a while, but not somebody that you're going to rely upon to play maybe 40, 50, or potentially 60 plays a night. And really the same thing can be said of Gerard Mayo now too. I think both of those guys are reserve linebackers. So you had two really good starting linebackers that were not there. One who didn't even make the trip, and the other one who got hurt during the game, and consequently they got replaced by guys that frankly got exposed as that game went along. And I think the Broncos really did a very good job of exposing what really at the moment is the weakest link of the Patriot defense, and that would be the linebacking position.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything he just said. Hey, I'm going to give Freeney a little bit of credit. I mean, he led the team in tackles in the game. He also had a sack. So, I mean, he played pretty good, if you ask me. It's shocking to me that New England Denver hasn't been able to run on anyone all year. And I kind of didn't expect them to be able to do it against New England either. But then again, I know John was on the show a couple weeks back, and I mentioned that New England hasn't been tested, against a good run game. And I think it finally shows what happens when there's a decent run attack. New England's definitely vulnerable against the run if there's a good running back in the backfield, and that's a little bit scary for me come later down, towards the playoffs and all that. But they killed us with the run. I mean, their offensive line is not very good, and they were making holes so big that it was pretty scary. So,
let's say it, Josh. Yeah. I mean, look, Ronnie Hillman is a pretty good running back. The week before against the Bears, he did run for over 100 yards, 102 or 21 carries.
True.
So he was a guy that was starting to get things done for the Broncos in the backfield with the running game. And let's face it, when you had a change in quarterback, a balanced offense was now something that Gary Kubiak was really a lot more interested in trying to sustain. And it appears in the Bears game that they were able to accomplish that goal. They did it again against the Patriots. And I do think that now that Brock Osweiler is the guy, you're going to see a change in the way the Broncos run that offense. It's not going to be the pass-happy operation that it was with Peyton Manning was running the show. Now it's going to be a bit more balanced. And I think if there were knocks against that Bronco offensive line for their inability to be able to open holes for their running backs, I think those questions may be starting to be quickly put to bed.
Yeah, I do want to mention a couple of players. I don't want to bang too much on the rushing defense because Alan Branch, I think, has been largely overlooked by Patriot fans, I believe, and he's just been a beast right in the middle of the field. He was penetrating on the inside for rushes all night long, and he had a really good night of pushing the pocket inside on the passing down, getting his hand on a couple of throws. And Malcolm Brown also, I do want to mention him, and Dominic Easley, who happens to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, which is unbelievable. And Jabal Sheard had another big game. It seems like he's completely healthy and, of course, on the edge. So those are a few guys, I think, that are not getting enough attention and who I think should be getting attention because those are guys that are really making a difference on that front line.
Okay. Well, I just think that Patriot front four has just been really good all year long, but you need linebackers to be able to support them, and right now I think that can be debated.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with guys like Gerard Mayo and his health. I'm really concerned about him, especially since, I have an affinity towards him. So, all right, guys, we have to talk about this before we move on. I really don't like to focus on the refereeing because it's just, it's not the reason the Patriots lost the game. Obviously not. But you like to come out of a football game and realize that, hey, the team will be fair and square. They punched us in the mouth and this and that. But coming out of that game, when you have people who actually do not like the Patriots coming out, and I'm talking about media members coming out and saying that they were jobbed in the game, and then you have a huge problem because the refereeing in this game was absolutely atrocious. And I'm using a good word. There are words that I can't use on this network remarks that I want to use to talk about the refereeing in this game. It's just an embarrassment from the NFL. I mean, the crew let the players play for the majority of the game, but there were just numerous cases of jersey pulling on Rob Gronkowski all game long. There was an armbar on Akeem Talib that was let slide. But then they called the most ticky-tack holding penalty on the Patriots that wiped the sack out. It would have pushed the Broncos back to a 3rd and goal from the 19-yard line and said it was a 1st and goal from the 4. And then it was a key holding penalty on Trey Jackson, and that was a 51-yard pass from Brady to Keyshawn Martin in the 4th quarter. That would have put the pass in field goal range. But there they go. Hankey's in the red pocket. They throw it out. A blatant hand to the face with the ball sheared, as well as a hold on McCourty. And the worst of it all were the 2 absolutely egregious offensive pass interference calls on Rob Gronkowski, which wiped out another key 1st down, and the Broncos 4 timeout when the clock didn't stop and precious seconds were allowed to tick away. The call on Gronk was a really sore spot, and there was a scene where Gronk and Brady looked close, and they even drew an unsportsmanlike penalty, which, that probably would have been the perfect ending, I guess. And Bill Belichick after the game was really testy after this, and he was asked of it, and he said, go ask the league, they have all the answers. And he was mentioning what is or what isn't offensive pass interference. I mean, for me, the bottom line is there's no sense in the team arguing about it, because, again, it wasn't the reason why they lost, but, again, it would just be nice to have a level playing field when it comes to how they call these games. I mean, just some consistency. But as we all know, with the Patriots, there's no such thing as consistency. It's all about non-objectivity. So, guys, why don't you go ahead and do the heavy lifting for me? Because just talking about the rest, I think I'm getting 109 fever.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I 100% am as upset as you are about all this, but I just know that throughout league-wide, the officiating has been bad. And I think a lot of people would argue that New England gets a lot of favorable calls when they play their team. So, yeah, we had bad calls. And Gronkowski, offensive pass interference, probably not a pass interference, probably a bad call. That holding that you brought up, defensive holding on the sack, yeah, I didn't see anything, and nor did the announcers. And there's always going to be a lot of calls that make a fan, unhappy when their team loses. And I'm trying not to be, I just don't know if the issue was refereeing in this game for New England. I think it had a lot more to do with just not making plays and not having the players to do so. But yeah, I would argue that the officiating overall in the NFL has been awful for all teams, not just New England or any other team for that matter.
When you hear, I had the opportunity last night to hear Mike Holmgren talk about the officiating and how, although he's somebody who's not really associated with the league any longer, talk about his frustration at watching games and then watching how some of these games are officiated or in some cases lack thereof. I do think that the National Football League really does need to look at this in the off season and really try and as best they possibly can. And let's face it, it's a very difficult sport to be able to clarify rules on, but I think that the time has come for the National Football League to really do a serious evaluation of the people involved with officiating these games, just to make sure that they really do have a thorough understanding of not only the rule book, but how the rule book is to be applied in certain situations. To me, the two glaring calls were the Gronkowski pass interference, where it looked like he may have extended his forearm, and that's why that particular call was made, and then the Patrick Chung pass interference call in the end zone, where if he had a grab of the back of the jersey, it was for maybe a millisecond, if that long, frankly. But those were the two ones that seemed to have caused the most uproar of anybody around here, would be those two in particular. But I do think that the National Football League needs to look at this, and they've already decided for the coming weekend that there's going to be one officiating crew that's going to be taking off one game and placed on another one. And I think level of confidence has become a problem for the NFL that needs to be solved when the offseason arrives.
The one play that I would mention, actually, that was interesting to me, and I know Denver probably recovered the ball, but I don't know if you remember when I think it was Harper's fumble. New England came out with the ball, and they and Denver gets the ball nonetheless. But that's interesting to me because I've never really seen the officiating crew award the ball to the team that didn't have the ball when they came out of the pile. So that was kind of different for me, even though I do 100% believe Denver probably recovered that football.
Well, you never know what happened at the bottom of those piles. So, who knows how long Edna may have had that football when he finally, popped up and showed everybody that he had it. It may have been just, lying there, and he just scooped it up and said, okay, I had this thing all along. It did look like when Harper dropped that ball, when he went to dive on it first, that there was a Bronco player that did pretty much surround that football. Whether he actually got his hands on it and was able to secure it is certainly going to be a question for debate. But it did look like there was at least one Bronco player that at least had his chest on that ball when it was on the ground.
Yeah. And John, you mentioned the ref crew, one of the ref crews from the Cardinals and Arizona game. Well, that crew that has been reassigned to a game game. You know what game that they've been assigned to? Guess what? The Patriots and Eagle game next week.
Right.
So, you know, I mean,
right.
you know, if it isn't one thing, it's another. And, you know, the NFL is really...
I think it does point out, but it does point out, guys, what we've been saying is that I do think that there has become a lack of confidence in some of these officiating crews within the league office in New York, and I think it's a problem that really does need to be solved because, let's face it, you're getting to the real important time of the year here. There are playoff spots that are on the line here in the month of December. You've got playoff games coming up in January, not to mention what's going to happen in February. So you need to have as much confidence as you possibly can have in these crews, and it does appear that the league office may not have that confidence.
I saw a funny sign in one of the games. I think it was the San Francisco game that it had a sign that says, "Bring back the replacement refs." So that's kind of funny.
It's also kind of sad, too.
Yeah, it really is sad. And, you know, those were so bad. And before I play a clip for you guys, I want to talk about Rob Gronkowski, specifically in the offensive pass interference calls. There was an article that 98.5 The Sports Hub came out with that was mentioning the Gronk OPIs. And there's a stat that, before I even talk about him, there was a stat out there that said Gronk's first 67 games, he was called 7 times for offensive pass interference. In his last 9 games, he was called 6 times. So there's something really wrong going on here. I don't know what it is, but it makes no sense to me that
I think the problem that Gronk has is that he likes to extend his arms. And when you extend the arms, you're going to get flagged for it. You got to keep the forearm tight to your body, and that is something that he has a hard time doing.
But see, John, the problem I have is you can't think about one guy because one guy is so big and so strong and so powerful, and his stature is so huge that you can't control anything. I mean, the NFL has some explaining to do on their part. They keep calling it like this. I mean, everybody should have consistency.
Look, I tend to agree with you, but I do think that because he extends his arms, I think that what officials are coming to the conclusion is that he's giving himself, I guess what you would describe as an unfair leverage advantage when he extends the arm because he is that big and strong, and I think that that's why he's being flagged. I think that if he keeps his forearm to his body, I think that call is not made. But unfortunately, he extended the arm, and by doing so, he created separation that allowed him to make that catch, and I think that's how it was interpreted.
All right. Well, yeah, that is fair. But, you know, a guy like him who plays reckless, he might have to start learning that. But hopefully, he as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure he can learn that because he picked up the offense immediately in his first year. So I'm sure he can learn that. But I want to play this clip of you guys of Tom Brady, and this clip shows how much the loss of Gronkowski and how this game affected him. And this is from the Dennis and Callahan show on WEEI. I want you guys to listen to this.
Anytime you lose, it was a very hard loss, and I don't think I've ever been so instantly pissed off after a loss. And I think everyone felt the same way. So hopefully we can use it as a motivation going forward. And it's like I said, there's things that we can have done better, and certainly not to leave it up to a call here, or a call there, or one player. There's things across the board that we need to do a better job of, and we can do a better job of, and that's where our focus is going to be this week.
Why you said you were as pissed off as any other game last night? You've lost Super Bowls, you lost playoff games. What about this one in specifically, I guess, had you to that reaction that you were that angry?
I don't know. I just think the circumstances of the game, the circumstances of the situation, and that we were in, with winning by, having a good lead there in the fourth quarter, and then having a couple third downs called back, huge third downs that we made called back by penalty, and then losing a player like Gronk in the fourth quarter, and then fighting back like we did to get into overtime. And I thought the first play of the overtime, the guy hooked Joe, and they didn't call that, and then they got the ball and scored touchdowns. I just think it was kind of how it all played out. I was just pretty pissed off. But obviously the final outcome and just how the last 15 or last 20 minutes.
Yeah, so obviously he was pissed off. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, it's the way he sounded. I mean, I know it's early in the morning when they do those interviews, but I don't think he was a little too pleased. So this kind of makes me feel good knowing that a guy like that can focus on all the things that he needs to improve on instead of the things that didn't go his way.
Yeah, I'm glad he's mad. Seriously, I'm glad he's mad that they lost because that means he's motivated to win next week. And I might be one of the only Patriots fans in the world who will say this, but I'm kind of glad we got a loss out of the way. I don't like losing. Trust me, I didn't like when we lost, but I think it's going to remotivate this team. I really do, and I think it might be a good thing, even though it probably had the wrong team to lose to because they can actually beat us in a tiebreaker if we were to lose again. So, so that's my input on it.
You don't want to make it sound like a little whining, which, that did have a little bit of whining associated with it. But again, like you said, Shaq, I mean, based on when that interview was done, it's probably 7, 8 o'clock in the morning after the Patriots had arrived home from Denver. It probably wasn't the smarter time to speak with him. But again, because of a contractual obligation, Brady shows up on that show and does his 15 or 20 minutes. With the Patriots, you don't expect them to blow 14-point leads, which is what they did in that fourth quarter. And you don't expect that to happen. You don't expect a backup quarterback to take a team down the field against that defense and tie the game. You don't expect him to do that again in overtime and win the game. You don't expect a Brock Osweiler to make big plays against a defense that may be better than him. You don't expect a Patriot coaching staff to not be able to come up with defensive schemes that were going to confuse him as the game went along. And it just didn't appear that Brock Osweiler was really confused about what he was seeing out there. And maybe it was because of the personnel. Maybe it was because, as I said earlier, the Broncos figured out that the linebacking core was the weakest link. I think Brock Osweiler was frankly too comfortable out there. And that, to me, was, I think, the most surprising aspect of not only his performance, but really the Patriot performance as that game went along.
Yeah, and before we move on from this game, because I really want to, this loss, and Josh, you mentioned this when you were talking about the clips. I had to having this loss. Do you think that there's less pressure now that the Patriots aren't undefeated and they don't have to have that burden on their shoulders? Do you think that they can loosen up a little bit and try to focus more on the opponent at hand and not having to focus on keeping an undefeated record? Because the Carolina Panthers, now they're the only undefeated team left. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on them, especially when it comes down to the middle of December when playoffs are just around the corner. And we all know, having dealt with this in 2007, that a lot of attention gets paid onto you, especially when you're 15-0 and got Don Shula nipping at your toes. So do you guys think that this is less pressure, or do you think that maybe you think something different? Maybe you think that this is a bad loss because maybe you think that maybe they should have won and maybe they should continue to be undefeated. What do you guys think?
I think that it probably is a little bit of pressure, but I think New England's going to be refocused, and New England is one of the best teams in December over the last 10 years anyways, and they got a really favorable schedule. This loss, at the end of the day, it sucks to be a fan, but this team has a favorable schedule the rest of the year, and they're going to go on their typical, to me, in my opinion, they'll get back to the momentum that they had going into the Broncos game, and I'm not really sure if the pressure was removed by losing this game or if it, had any influence on. I mean, I think the team's upset that they lost. I think they wanted to win every game they could, but I know Belichick doesn't like to lose, and he made that clear in his press conference where he was typical Belichick when he's not happy. So I guess my answer would be that I don't really think it removes pressure or has any effect on the team. I think that they're going to be ready for December where they play their best football.
I think what's interesting about both the Patriots and the Carolina Panthers is that you're dealing with two head coaches that understand the history and the legacy of the game. And so I think that both of those teams being undefeated going into last week, really, to me was not really that big a deal. I don't expect that the Carolina Panthers are undefeated as you go through the month of December and say you get to that last game January 3rd and they've got a chance to become 16-0. I don't think you're going to see Ron Rivera throw a game away because he's concerned about the playoffs and concerned about his team maybe losing a game now as opposed to doing it in January. I think the Patriots frankly would have done the same thing. If they were 15-0 going into that last game against the Miami Dolphins, they would have certainly tried to win that game in Miami just because that the 1972 Miami Dolphins would have been in one of those luxury suites watching that game from start to finish, and that would have been enough motivation for the Patriots to finish that off and go 16-0. So I do think that you're dealing with two teams and two head coaches that understand the history and the legacy of the game and that they would embrace it the way it should be, as opposed to what some other teams have done in recent years when they've been in those situations and have thrown games on purpose because they're more concerned about how the team's going to be ready for the playoffs as opposed to embracing the history of the game the way it was meant to be done.
Or if you're the Colts, throw every game so you get Andrew Luck in the draft.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the good news for Patriots fans is that the Bengals and the Broncos are going to be playing a game against each other on Monday Night Football. I believe that's the last week of the season or maybe the week beforehand. Whichever it is, they're going to be playing.
So, is the game that Cincinnati and Denver has, December 28th.
Right. So that game is going to have major implications for the Patriots, and so at least one of those teams is going to have another loss. So as long as the Patriots can continue to take care of business, I think that they'll be all right for a number one deal or maybe even a number two. But the bye is what I believe is the most important thing, especially with the shape of this team and all the injuries that have compounded everything this season. So
let's face it, you would rather have teams come through Foxborough in the month of January to try try and get to Santa Clara, as opposed to the Patriots having to go somewhere to do it themselves. And I think history has shown that when the Patriots don't have to travel somewhere in the month of January, they're a very dangerous team to have to deal with.
Absolutely. So with that said, let's talk about the Eagles coming into Foxborough on Sunday. And luckily, most of the country is going to be able to watch this game, which means me and Josh are going to be able to watch it. You know, John, you get the game, so you don't have to worry about that. So,
I'm not sure people in Philadelphia want to see this game. I'll say that. I'm not sure they want to see it.
Yeah. They'd rather watch the Sixers than watch this, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know if they want to watch the Sixers either, but I'm not sure they're going to want to watch this.
Yeah, the Eagles are 4-7, and they definitely did not. I'm sure they grew up on their Thanksgiving turkey because they really took a beating to the Detroit Lions, 40-45-14, and that was the second consecutive game that they gave it 45 points. I mean, Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson had huge days, and that was a crazy game to even watch. So first of all, John, I want you to talk about Chip Kelly, and he might be under fire a little bit. He's denying rumors about him going to USC.
Well, let's eliminate the word maybe. I think Chip Kelly is under fire, and this is what happens when you give a coach an opportunity to buy the groceries and he doesn't buy the right ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
and he's denying that he's going to USC.
As far as USC is concerned, that's been taken care of. The interim coach of the University of Southern California has now been hired as the permanent coach, and so the USC job is now out of the picture for Chip Kelly, if in fact he was interested in going back to the West Coast and reestablishing himself and reestablishing those West Coast relationships that he had when he was at Oregon. So there are some college jobs that are now starting to be taken care of, which can maybe eliminate some of the possibilities. The one that's still out there that I think Chip Kelly would be interested in is the LSU job, if in fact LSU and the boosters decide that Les Miles need to go.
Yeah, and see, I don't think Les Miles is going anywhere either.
Well, that's going to depend on the boosters.
Yeah.
There does seem to be some discord between Les Miles and the boosters of LSU, and the fact that LSU has not been a national championship contender in recent years, that there are some people down there in Baton Rouge that are not happy about this and would like to see a change. The problem with that is that Les Miles, if you believe the scouting services that are out there, is bringing in the number one rated recruiting class for next year for LSU. So he's got some leverage here. He's got a great recruiting class coming in. He's got a pretty good team at the moment. They're coming off a rather impressive win over Texas A&M on Saturday. You know what? Although Les did tell some people before the start of the game that he was coaching his last game at LSU, I'm not sure people are buying it just yet, but the rumor is still out there. There's no question about that.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's forget about Chip Kelly a little bit because we know he's probably going to be gone by the end of the year. And let's talk about the Patriots on offense. And again, I mentioned that the Philadelphia Eagles, they're just the first team since 1970, and that's the Chicago Bears, to give up 5 passing touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. And there's just a 5th team in the modern era to give up 45 points and 430-plus yards in successive games. But, however, the Patriots and Tom Brady won't be the offensive juggernaut that rolled in earlier in the season. And obviously, Rob Gronkowski will not be available for the game. So that's about 74% of his pass production with all the receivers' injuries at the end of the game against Denver. So what do you guys think about how the Patriots offense can exploit this Eagles secondary, which is putrid, to say the least?
I don't think they're going to have any issues doing it. Philly hasn't shown they can stop even the worst teams in the NFL, and they haven't been really playing anyone good lately either. So I would assume that New England will have a game plan that Philly is not going to be able to handle. I think they're terrible on defense. They're just not very good anywhere, actually, not even on offense. So, listen, New England's going to move the ball with ease, and I really do think they're going to establish more of a run game to get things done here, but I'm not too worried about Philly's defense affecting New England's offense at all.
I would ram it right down their throats.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm the Patriots, I'd just run this thing right down their throats and see if they can handle it. I mean, go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game 2 weeks ago. The Eagles gave up 283 rushing yards in that game. 235 were accumulated by Doug Martin himself.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't realize that Doug Martin was that good of a running back, but at least on that particular day, he was. If I'm the Patriots, I would ram it down their throats and just see what happens. I do think that the Eagles are a football team that has quit on their coach, and that seems to be the rumor that's out there, that this team has pretty much just atoned to Chip Kelly out. And if that's the case, I would just ram it down their throat, get a lead as quickly as I could, and put them out of their misery by halftime.
I absolutely agree, John. And when you say that they have quit, it's not just the players that have quit, it's the coaches. There's defense coordinator Billy Davis of the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a quote out there that said that he had to figure out why the defense is playing well so early, but it's playing bad. You had to figure it out? Are you kidding me? The opposing teams in October were averaging only 3.1 yards per rush. Now they're averaging up to 4.4 yards per rush. And you can't figure out what's going on? Are you serious? So, yeah, I agree. Ram it down there, folks. Garrett Blount, Brandon Bolden, whoever you can find, just run the ball a lot. So, yeah, I'm absolutely with you on that part, John.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if Mark Sanchez is the starting quarterback of the Eagles, and he probably will be, we all know from Sanchez's days with the Jets, he's just a turnover-happy machine. And just provide Sanchez with the opportunity to turn the football over, which he will do if you give him that opportunity. And I think that this, although I don't expect this to be a relatively easy afternoon for the Patriots, I think it'll be easy enough that they can forget about what happened Sunday night in Denver and move on and, frankly, start a new winning streak.
Yeah, Mr. Butt Fumble himself, I would love for him to have a few interceptions to give to the Patriots, give them extra field position and give them extra possession. But I will say Fletcher Cox, defensive end, leads the Eagles in sacks with 5.5. He's somebody to look toward, but that's about it as far as the Eagles on defense. Let's talk about the Eagles on offense and the Patriots on defense. I think that they really, from the Eagles I'm talking about, I don't know. They just, with LaShawn McCoy, they were doing pretty well with him, but now they're averaging a respectable 114.5 yards per game. They have some type of running back by committee. I really can't figure it out. Is it DeMarco Murray? Is it Ryan Matthews? Is it whoever else they have back there to sit on the bench? I really don't know. So I think the rushing defense is going to have a pretty good day. I think the secondary is going to have a pretty good day as well. There's really not necessarily a number one guy. I think Jordan Matthews, you could say, is a guy you could focus on. Malcolm Butler, putting him on there. And Logan Ryan, who I regret we didn't talk about, which we will focus on him right now. I think Logan Ryan has been a star. He has just been wonderful. And Demaryius Thomas really didn't do anything besides that one catch that he had. And really, Demaryius Thomas is not really that type of a tough guy, I don't believe. He just took him right out of the game. But, yeah, as far as the Eagles on offense are concerned, I really don't think that they'll be able to do a lot on this Patriot defense. What do you guys think?
The Eagles have no identity. And the other issue is Marco Murray. They spent a lot of money on this guy, and he hasn't performed for them, and they really haven't given him an opportunity to perform. I mean, their offensive line is terrible. They don't have an identity as a running game. You got Sproles, you got Kenyon Barner, you got DeMarco Murray. It's a cluster back there. And then their wide receiver group, I think they whiffed basically in the draft when they drafted Nelson Aguilar, who hasn't really done much of anything for them. And Jordan Matthews really just is an average wide receiver. He's not a superstar. Maybe he's not a superstar in this system. Maybe somewhere else he would be. But what they're doing in Philly is just not working on offense. And I think a lot of it has to do with what John said earlier. This team has quit on them, and they're just not talented either, honestly.
Well, I was a fan of Jordy Matthews when he was at Vanderbilt, and I was a fan of Nelson Aguilar when he was at USC. I think those guys were talented college wide receivers. I think it's quite possible that the system that's being used by Chip Kelly just doesn't fit with these guys, and I think that may be a part of the problem. I don't think it's a whole problem, but I do think it's part of the problem. And I think that there's going to be some soul-searching done in Philadelphia. I don't think there's any question about it, and it could lead to Chip Kelly's eventual demise, among other things. But I think that they've got pieces on this team, on both sides of the ball. I'm just not sure that the schemes and the systems that these guys are being put in really does any good to their skill sets.
Yeah, and special teams, I don't think we have to worry about that much. Darren Sproles he hasn't really been the Darren Sproles of the Saints form, so we're going to move on with that. And Steven Gostkowski, we have to mention him. Just an amazing kick that he made last week, and I mean, I can't. There are no words to say about Steven Gostkowski. I mean, besides the one miss, which I really don't count that as a miss, but you have to. He's just been unbelievably automatic this season, and yeah, there's nothing I can say. He's just amazing.
I think he's the underrated star of that football team.
For sure, no doubt. Yeah, he makes everything, all the big kicks.
All right, guys, let's predict it. What do you guys think?
Well, to me, it's all about the Philadelphia Eagles, whether they decide to show up or not. I think if they decide to show up, this could be an interesting game, but I think if the Eagles decide to play the way they played the past 2 weeks, I can see the Patriots winning by, say, 42-10 easily.
Yeah, the thing New England has an issue with playing down to bad teams. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So I do kind of expect to be a little bit closer than probably what we would expect. Something like 34-21 would be my prediction.
Yeah, I do notice that, Josh, and I would not be surprised if they started off slow. I'm talking about the Patriots here on offense. I would not be surprised if they did, because you have to when you basically have nothing but paper land out there. And that's not to disparage the guys who are playing out there, because you can't really expect them to put up the numbers that the guys who are out have. So I think all that being said, the Patriots are going to I think they're going to go back to putting up 30 points, and the Eagles, I think, will put up 17. I think it'll be 31-17. I think it'll be a comfortable win. I don't think think it'll be close up until the third maybe, but I think they'll get another touchdown to seal it probably. So
well, I do think if this game is close going into the second half, then I think the Patriots have a bit of a problem. I really think that putting the Eagles out of their misery as quick as you possibly can is really the best way to go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And quickly, one more thing. What do you guys think about Sam Bradford, even if he does play? Because we talked about Mark Sanchez, but Bradford tested his arm today. I'm not sure what happened on that front. So what do you guys think about him?
To me, Sam Bradford needs to figure out how he's going to get his next contract. And, I mean, he is a free agent at the end of the year, and I just, even though you have a lack of quarterbacking depth in the NFL, which may provide Sam Bradford with a chance to get another contract, I don't think the Patriots need to be worried about the quarterback position. I just don't think either Sam Bradford or Mark Sanchez is going to scare them.
If I were Sam Bradford, I would retire. That dude's been injured more than he's played, and he's made quite a bit of money just recovering from injury. I mean, I wouldn't risk getting hurt anymore if I were him. He's been through a lot, but yeah.
But you know that's the problem, though. I mean, you know that there's an NFL team out there that's going to give him a contract just based on the fact that there is a need at that position, pretty much by every team.
Yeah, As far as this game, I don't really, like John, I don't really think it matters who starts at quarterback for this team. I think no one's going to win regardless. So.
All right, well, let's get to our last segment, which John, I don't think you're familiar with it, so we'll get you a little rant up for it. But Josh and I like to do something called the Patriots Moment of Zen, which is we like to laugh at the misfortunes of others, I guess a little schadenfreude, as you would call it. But this is not really a laughing matter. I think this is really hypocritical, and I think the person who did this should really not be talking because, you know, there's a saying out there, throwing glass houses into stones or whatever it is. And I'm talking about Ray Lewis. Yeah, throwing rocks at glass houses. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
I'm talking about Ray Lewis. The Monday night little performance after the Buffalo game?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And he was reportedly giving a pep talk, and I say pep talk in quotes, to the Buffalo Bills before the game. We didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but what do you guys think about this? I mean, do you think that guys who are hired from networks who shouldn't have any affiliation to any type of team, why are they giving pep talks to opponents who are about to play on their network? What is that about?
Well, I'll say this. ESPN had a rough night in Foxborough 2 weeks ago. They took a lot of abuse from the fans, and we all know why. And it was abuse that took place pretty much from the time that their pregame shows went on, and I guess they go on at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it didn't stop until they were finished before the kickoff started at about 8:15. There was a lot of signs, negative signs, a lot of verbal abuse that all of those people who were a part of the pregame show took, including Ray Lewis. As far as Ray Lewis going into the Buffalo Bill locker room and giving them a pep talk, I agree. That is inappropriate, and it is not something that ESPN should be proud of. But let's face it, they do consider themselves to be above everybody else, and consequently, they have apparently decided that their rules do not necessarily apply to them as they do to everyone else. And I think that's part of the reason why they take the abuse that they do, plus the fact that they've got some reporters on that network that from time to time don't necessarily know what they're talking about.
Yeah, this is a network that had Mark Brunell on TV crying over a deflated football, so nothing should shock you. Ray Lewis has been vocal about hating the Patriots for most of his career, so it doesn't shock me at all that he went into the Bills locker room to give him a little pep talk to get him amped up or whatever. It's inappropriate. He shouldn't be doing that as somebody who's working for what's supposed to be the biggest sports media franchise in the United States or anywhere in the world, I guess.
Well, let's hope it's not. Let's hope that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, so not shocking to me at all.
And the greatest thing about this is it actually isn't, John. You're kind of right, because there are reports out there that their subscriber base is dwindling, and I mean dwindling by the millions, and I think there's about 7 million, up to 7 million subscribers going down, so, a curse on you, ESPN. Just unbelievably disgusting journalistic integrity.
We need to get those guys to come on our website, NGSC Sport.
I don't know about that.
I don't think we need those people. No, I think we can manage the way we're going.
Oh no, I'm talking about the subscribers.
The subscribers. Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Not the other.
Yeah, I would love 7 million listeners to Flying Elvis Faithful. That would be wonderful.
And I should have been more.
Let's get that for this show right now.
I should have been more clear when I said that.
The subscribers, yes. The talent, no, absolutely.
Yeah, the talent league, they could, suck a lemon for all I care. So, all right, guys, this has been an awesome show. I can't believe it's been almost more than an hour. So, John, I mean, you just hit the ground running.
No, you need to be careful about the amount of time you have. The boss is going to be really happy if we go over.
Yeah. I hope he won't mind because, we're talking about the Patriots, man. I mean, who else? No, nobody else.
Well, you got to remember the boss is not a Patriot fan, and in a couple of weeks, his Tennessee Titans are going to see the Patriots. So you may get a surprise call from him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm putting on my Marcus Mariota jersey right now as we speak, Ralph. Okay, I promise you. This is the number 1 or whatever number he wears. I promise you, wearing it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's about it for us today. Before we go, I want to remind you folks to visit our Facebook page. It's off and running. It's popular. It's a chic thing to do if you're a Patriots fan. So log on to facebook.com/FlyingElvisFaithful. It's all one word. Just spell it. These post stories from different websites. You can follow the team wherever you are. Me and Josh are posting there, and we're going to add some stuff about John in a few days, so make sure you visit us there. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. I'm at AtomicDog22. John is at Radio Doucette, and Josh is at Joshing Me. So come back with us next week. We're going to talk about the Eagles game, and who do we play after the Eagles? Let's see.
Houston.
Yeah,
right,
it's going to be the Sunday game with Houston. So they'll get to see Vince Wilfork again.
Sure.
Yeah, Vince Wilfork and the rest of the Patriots South down there with Bill O'Brien and Mike Vrabel and everybody else. So that'll be an interesting game to talk about as well. So for John and for Josh, I'm Shaq. Love, peace, and go Pat.
Good night.
Good night.